Welcome back to the home studio and welcome to episode 9 of the Stevie Richards Show. It's so creative. It's such a creative name that I came up with because my name is Stevie Richards and I just put it between the and show. This is episode 9 and I'm not allowed to give away the title. I'm going to pass it along to, but I will give a little hint. Take it away, James.
For the audio listeners, Stevie was flexing his arms there in the Hulk Hogan pose because we're going to be talking about Hulk Hogan. A bit of time in TNA as well. We're going to be talking about Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff taking over TNA Impact Wrestling in 2010, how that affected Stevie's career. But this is mostly going to be dedicated to Hulk Hogan. Stevie is looking forward to the text message he will inevitably receive.
Yeah, I just hope the brother count is on the over, not the under. That's what I want to see. And I look forward to the -HH signature within the text.
I love the tweet that he did because you mentioned HH, where he's got a photo with Bam Margera from Jackass and just saying, loved hanging out with this guy, miss you, brother. And then Bam had to write back to him and said, dude, I'm still alive, miss you too.
Well, if anybody saw his Joe Rogan interview, there were some interesting takes by Hulk Hogan of the wrestling 400 days a year, which is that an old Gregorian calendar or some kind of sundial calendar? Did we lose, 50 days of the year? I love that. That was awesome. Also, he got Kevin Owens his job, but we have a segment that James is going to test my knowledge later on during this episode, correct?
Yeah, you've already come up with 2 of the 10 I came up with as well. Hulk Hogan's biggest lies, the old whoppers that he's been coming out with since probably the day he was born, I imagine. But some people have said, man, Hulk Hogan, you've got to give him a break. He's in his 70s, he's probably got multiple concussion syndrome, he can't remember everything. It's like some of these... There was one about the Wembley story that I didn't include. It's just too long. It's like, he told that in 94. You can't blame being a septuagenarian when he was in his early 90s coming out with this absolute... The song and the dying kid that he could smell the death on. And I invited this kid to be in the front row of SummerSlam 92, which he didn't wrestle on. And he was retired at the time. And, he didn't, they were good... They were going to wheel the kid on the gurney straight up to front row. Stevie, how many thousands of arenas and stadiums or whatever have you appeared in? Have you ever seen a sick, dying child on a gurney in the front row watching you?
Well, I saw a handicapped child get thrown down steps by Brock Lesnar, a one-armed wrestler or one-legged wrestler. Johnny Ace probably thought he was the one-armed wrestler. Of course, he hired initially the wrong one-legged wrestler. We can talk about that on a future episode. Johnny Ace's hits and misses as far as his Victoria's Secret catalog scouting reports. So we're like, that explained a lot right there about what's going on now. But I have never seen, outside of Terry Funk coming back from the hospital with the IV and Spirit of 76, I've never seen a hospitalized individual just be gurneyed out to the front row. Well, now it's going to happen. We're going to look like liars because I was on SmackDown. Actually,
yeah, I like the idea of you have to clear out about 7 premium front row seats so you can make thousands of dollars each on to make way for... Anyway, forget it. Just also with Johnny Laurinaitis, let's not forget that he's the victim here. Let's not victim shame poor John Laurinaitis being forced into all those threesomes and meeting with Janelle Grant in that hotel room, allegedly.
Allegedly. Please, allegedly. We don't need any trouble right now, but yeah, I'm sorry about that. I'm really sorry. We'll be better next time. And as far as the memory with Hulk Hogan, I have to say, as much as sometimes I remember something or try to research it for these episodes because I want to be as accurate as I can, I do get stuff wrong. I got the China Pile Driver thing wrong because I mixed up the rehearsal where we were holding her legs, and then in the live
version. That's not aired yet. That's in a future episode.
Well, yeah, I'm teasing it.
Okay.
So stay tuned for a future 2-part, right? The censor special here at the Stevie Richards Show. How's that?
There you go.
That's a fine way of doing it. Let me just get this out the way very quickly. Hulk Hogan can't stop putting his foot in it. So, and then we're going to get to Hogan and TNA. So, in a video obtained by TMZ, we're recording this on a Wednesday for release on Friday. This happened on Tuesday. In a video obtained by TMZ, the 71-year-old can be seen asking a jeering crowd, "Do you want me to body slam?" It's not Kamala, it's Kamala. Is that how you pronounce it, Kamala Harris?
So initially, they were pronouncing it like Kamala, the Ugandan giant type thing when she first came on the scenes, but it's Kamala.
Okay, so I'm going to say Kamala anyway. "Do you want me to drop the leg on Kamala?" he shouts, referring to one of his iconic wrestling moves. The comments were made during a promotional event for his new beer, and come amid calls. This new beer's caused him no end of heartache, I'll tell you, and calls to stop violent political rhetoric following the assassination attempt of Donald Trump nearly 6 weeks ago. Hulk Hogan continued to make more comments about Ms. Harris, including one about her Indian heritage. "Kamala Harris is biracial. Her mother was from India and her father was Jamaican. Is Kamala a chameleon? Is she Indian?" Hogan asked the crowd before using an outdated and stereotypical greeting associated with, it's how, basically. The video stops after he could be heard saying he was going to get heat for that one. "That was not me, that was the beer talking," he added. And then he sort of moves on swiftly.
I thought he's not drinking it. That was weird. He said he stopped drinking, and then he promotes Real American Beer,
He
and
was
now...
chugging him on the stage. Are you saying that Hulk Hogan's word cannot be trusted?
I am, in this day and age, I am not saying anything.
Oh, well, we've got plenty to say. Okay, then
Let's you're going to throw your back out again, Stevie, doing that. All right, Hulk Hogan and TNA. You had completely reinvented yourself as the Dr. Stevie character in TNA in the year 2009, finishing up the year taking a black hole slam from Abyss onto a pile of thumbtacks at the TNA Final Resolution pay-per-view. We're not talking about Dr. Stevie today. That's for a future episode. A lot of people have been asking about that, so that'll come sooner rather than later. 2010 would roll around, and after teaming with Raven once again to wrestle and lose in 30 seconds to Hernandez and Matt Morgan, you and Raven weren't seen on TNA TV for around 7 months, leading up to TNA's own version of ECW One Night Stand, Hardcore Justice. Yet another story for another day, but the reason I bring this up is because January 4th, 2010 was a pivotal day not only for you because you were taken off TNA television, but also for the company as a whole, as this would be the day that Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff would debut for TNA. We're going to get to Hogan and Bischoff and their TNA run after I ask you this. Ultimately, why were you taken off TNA TV the day that Hulk Hogan and Bischoff came in? Is there any correlation there? Does it just happen to be a coincidence?
I think it's a coincidence, but more so they had an influx of not only Hogan, not only Bischoff, but also Jeff Hardy, Rob Van Dam. They needed to get them on TV. This January 4th, 2010 date was the first Monday Night War with TNA and WWE, correct? This was the episode where Homicide couldn't get up on that big, like, Terradome cage, and it was just very drawn out. I think, no, Jeff Hardy had debuted on the January 4th episode, and they had the Terradome cage or whatever it was called, and the Homicide was trying to climb out to where Jeff Hardy got and kind of met him in the middle up there. Am I getting that correct?
It was 14 years ago. I can't remember.
So if you can look that up, if you can look that up just for accuracy, I'm going to talk about the tag match, which honestly, I really forgot about it. But this was the first Monday night episode of TNA Impact, and they wanted to bring everybody. They already had signed Hogan. Bischoff comes along with the deal. I remember the Nasty Boys were backstage. Bubba the Love Sponge was backstage, and they eventually ended up on TV not too long after that on television. So Hogan brought all his friends in and also obviously commanded the most amount of money. And then the Jeff Hardy and Rob Van Dam deals. I'm saying all this stuff financially because we're going to segue in a few minutes, but they obviously needed in the pecking order to put those people on TV as much as possible. And then that could be why Raven and myself, which it was kind of a mystery, that match, calling that match with Hernandez and Morgan and going 30 seconds, it wasn't cut for time. That was literally how long it was booked for, to get them over strong. But we were a little confused because there was no thought put into the show for something that it was the Monday Night Wars in TNA and Dixie Carter's mind. Everything revolved around, I think even during the show, they were showing Hogan or, a bunch of cars that was supposed to be Hogan driving to the arena during the show, which I laugh about all the time because I was in the back going, this dude's going to get so fined when he finally shows up. He is so late. But that's where it was kind of confusing to me. I would just say it was a financial decision. Even though we took him a 30-second spot on the show, it wasn't much. They needed Rob, Jeff, Hogan, Bischoff, and whoever else Hogan was bringing to be featured on TV.
The Nasty Boys was one of them, I think, briefly.
Yeah, they were, I don't know how many episodes they were on, but they were there that night or that day. There was a ton. I mean, he brought the whole entourage. I do remember that.
Papa Love Sponge.
Yep, and he was on TV for a bit too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did Vince Russo get fired at this point? Do you remember? Because I believe he was kept on somewhere. Because I know Bischoff worked with him or hung about with him or dealt with him at this point. So how come? Here's a genuine question, because throughout 2009, it's almost like a Halloween movie. Bunch of teenagers, and they're just getting lopped off one at a time. You know what I mean? You know, Jim Cornette's one of the last ones to go, but Dutch goes, Dutch Mantel, Jim Cornette goes, Savio Vega goes, Road Dogg goes. Just over the course of 2009, the second half, everyone's head is getting lopped off. Vince Russo, I think, stays, but did you notice this while you were doing the Dr. Stevie thing? Did you notice there was changes afoot?
No. That's stuff that happens in those meetings, and you had Jeff Jarrett involved as well. You're correct. Vince was there because I remember Vince talking about sitting down and meeting with Hogan. And this was the first time, I believe, that these two had any kind of contact since Bash at the Beach, meaning personal, face-to-face contact. And of course, Bischoff is right there along, and there's no love lost between Russo and Bischoff. So yeah, it was probably tedious. I don't know if the first meeting was January 4th, or they flew in early, or Hogan drove in early, or something to where they met. I'm not sure about that. They could have all just, and that would have been a very chaotic day, a very stressful day, and a very hold your breath, like what's going to happen, because you have to put on a live TV and compete with WWE on a Monday night for the first time, and then you have two guys that were literally had a legal battle back from Bash at the Beach 2000. Trying to hash it out hours before the live show. That would be extremely stressful, no pun intended.
We'll get back to Hogan. In fact, no, let's talk about this first, and then we'll go back to you and the money in TNA. What changed? We've already talked about TNA going head-to-head against WWE Monday Night Raw. I remember vividly that WWE had programmed Bret Hart's return to WWE television, and then meeting Shawn Michaels in the middle of the ring. So, from that minute on, TNA, if they ever had a chance, they never had a chance on that basis. Do you remember any other changes around this time that Hogan and Bischoff started implementing, and how 2010, 2011 was different to 2009?
Well, I can't recall if this particular show had switched it over, but I do believe they were big fans of getting rid of the six-sided ring, and some of the talent didn't appreciate it either. I personally just thought it made TNA stand out as something different right there visually, right away, six-sided ring. As a worker, you don't have as much area in the middle of the ring to take a proper bump. We're going to compare rings in a future episode, by the way, but you either loved it or hated it. There was no neutral thing. And of course, Hulk Hogan, if he ever planned to get back in the ring, that would be completely foreign territory, especially decades and decades of used to working in the four-sided ring. But I think that might have been the first major change that they wanted for that to look more WWE-like in that way. I think the ramp also, the straight ramp going to the ring was something that they brought. Maybe because Hogan, I'm just speculating, Hogan's knees, his back, his hips, walking down that angled ramp, or even running, but then a straight one could be a little bit less impact on him. Just my guess. And obviously, obviously, from a financial standpoint, they all got paid. They all got paid.
I suppose this is more of a question for the EV2 episode that I'm sure we'll do. It is EV2, or am I just making that name up? ECW2. EV2. Right. why don't we talk about you being taken off television then on this day? Because Dr. Stevie, it was a very good character, figured in with Abyss, Mick Foley, Raven, Daphne as part of that little group as well. It was almost like a complete reinvention, nothing like you'd have ever done of anything before, and it worked well. So then, of course, you have to go off TV. Did you ever get an idea of why you were taken off?
No. Most times you're never going to be given an idea of any of that stuff. So you're left there to guess. You're left there to try to fix something or improve something or get noticed in a way where it may not even matter. That's part of the mind games of professional wrestling, or maybe any other job out there, especially entertainment. So I had no idea, but I was willing to hopefully, come back and still be Dr. Stevie. Now, in the EV2 episode, I'm going to talk about how obviously that didn't happen and my displeasure with that. So just to say, give everybody kind of a synopsis on my time from WWE to TNA, just a little bit of a preview of the Dr. Stevie stuff and why this was discouraging. When I went to TNA, and I was literally, while I was during my 90 days after being released in August 2008, I was contacting Terry Taylor and Vince Russo, and they already had started to talk about this mysterious therapist for Abyss. And I go, that's me, because I knew at that point I had been, really just not even jobbed out, squashed out of any kind of belief in the Stevie Richards character. That character was essentially dead and buried a long time ago, years before my release. I wanted to start fresh, and I wanted to be a brand new character where you would not even know for 6 weeks that you would know it was me, but you wouldn't know. You would just hear the voice, see the back of the head, and Russo was all for that type of presentation, and I got proper vignettes for about 4 to 6 weeks, which got the character over. Now, with that being said, you fast forward to January 4th, 2010, which I came in February of 2009. A year or 13 months, or in this case, 11 months, is a lifetime in creative as far as wrestling. Like, you feel like you've been doing the character forever. They thought that way. I didn't. I thought the character was a very strong heel character to stay over enough to put baby faces over. And I proved that with Abyss. So when they came up on the January 4th, plus including Raven flipping the script, and now Dr. Stevie and Raven, there's history there that you realize, but it's a brand new coat of paint on it. I really enjoyed that time, especially with Raven as a team. And we were coming off Final Resolution against Mick Foley and Abyss. We put on a pretty entertaining, what was it called? Foley's House of Fun, hardcore match. So we were delivering. We worked Kurt Angle. Raven and I did some of our best work with Mick, Kurt Angle, Abyss. And then January 4th comes around, and I could see it on Raven's face. He was a lot smarter and figured in to knowing how things work behind the scenes, knowing how Jeff Jarrett operated, how Dixie Carter operated, and now Hogan and Bischoff from WCW is probably more familiar with how they operated. And I was just confused. But Raven already knew, we're not coming back after this for a while. And he was right. So it was discouraging. TNA, you talk about putting their foot in it. TNA has Dixie Carter has her flavor of the month, or this month is going to be when the face of wrestling has changed forever until next month when the next face changes forever. It's the original OG version of Game Changer in AEW. It's just all fluff, no stuff kind of thing. So long story short with that, it was just discouraging that some of the work that I was most proud of that put me in the spot to serve other talent in a semi-over role to help the baby faces get even more over got wasted in 30 seconds. And then for however many months were gone.
So before Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff get into TNA, were there any inklings that they were actually turning? I mean, how many weeks or months or whatever did you realize that the power structure of TNA was going to change with those guys coming in?
Well, there was that there was that press conference in New York City that Dixie and Hogan showed up on, and that was before the January 4th episode. I'm not exactly sure of the date, but I believe there might have been one talent meeting in the Universal studio. Used to have it when we sit in the bleachers, and Dixie would have a meeting about that. I think there was one meeting about Hogan and Bischoff. Rob, Jeff, and all that stuff, and the entourage, that was not mentioned. Those guys, when they showed up, that was kind of a surprise. But I believe the Hogan one, I don't know about, you just assume Bischoff's coming with Hogan no matter what. But Hogan had done that press conference in New York City to announce that he had signed with TNA. And I don't know if it coincided with, we're going to go live on Mondays in that press conference, or if it was going to be sometime after that. Also, Bischoff brought Jason Hervey when they were running the production company. So it was instantly kind of spidering out of control with that. Now, beforehand, you just assume it's going to be the Hulk Hogan, that doesn't work for me, brother. It's going to be this, it's going to be that. But one of the follow-up questions I think you're going to ask is, what are my personal thoughts about them coming in? My personal thoughts, I would say more business thoughts about it, that Hulk Hogan is quite possibly the biggest name in the business still in 2010. He may not be, with that new generation of the Austin Rock and stuff like that, but Hulk Hogan's still a recognizable household name. That can only help any other talent that's on the show, on the card, in the company. Unless you have a 30-second match where you're squashed, Hogan's not going to help you with that. You're not going to be looked at in a favorable way. So I was really kind of very excited about it, but I also knew the Hulk Hogan pattern of behavior, the Hulk Hogan $25,000 an appearance or whatever it is. These things are going to eat into any talent that wants a raise. Because how can you ask for a raise when we're paying the biggest star? We need to give him the money. Then the other stars come in. So I was excited for the exposure and the possibility of maybe WWE giving me another look and saying, wow, his work is really strong. Maybe we bring him back. I was still kind of in that in-between where I wanted to go back to WWE and prove myself in a different light. And Hogan, people would watch that first episode of January 4th, 2010, even with WWE, drew some of the highest TNA ratings. So, but then what's after that? When the novelty wears off, when you get Hulk Hogan week in and week out, or once a month if he's getting paid too much on a financial scale, what do you get after that? What does Hulk Hogan, and then he can come in and say, hey, I'm here to give the rub to young talent. I'm here to get other young talent over. I don't recall if anybody ever pinned Hulk Hogan outside of Sting in TNA.
I'm not sure I believe this. Sorry, I'm just looking at this. Hulk Hogan's alleged TNA salary. These are all forum things, you never know. I'm looking at $35,000 per televised TNA appearance. Someone's claiming that Hulk Hogan made $8 million a year plus merch in TNA. I can't believe that. Can you? As much as he was making WCW, I mean,
what's like? I can bring out the calculator. You're talking about, say, it's $25,000 an episode. Now, I don't know if it's, to see this where TNA, you would get paid per match at one point in the beginning, which is great. If you work 3 matches, you work more, you get paid more. Then somewhere it switched to per television episode. So they would tape sometimes after the live, or you would be on Explosion. You would just get paid the flat rate for the entire thing. So let's just say 25,000 times 26, because they would tape like every other week sometimes. That's $650,000 a year.
Oh, you beat me to it there.
Yeah, $650,000 a year for 26 appearances. If that's double, that's $1.3 million. And we don't know if there was a signing bonus, and also Hulk Hogan merchandise. He had T-shirts and all that stuff, so he could have touched $1 million a year.
Okay, I'm going to give you another one here,
but we have a story how that wouldn't be enough either.
Oh, yes, we do have a story there.
We do have a story there for that as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. With that being said, I remember thinking in 2010, brother, you've already got I mean, Booker T already left WWE. I mean, it's not the best example, but you've got like Raven there, who wasn't that old, but he looks older than his years. You've got Kevin Nash there. You've got Scott Steiner there. You've got Sting there. You've got loads of older WWE or former WWE, WCW types there. And this is in 2010. And then you're bringing in Hulk Hogan, who people know can barely move. He's had so many surgeries and so many back surgeries. And then Eric Bischoff as well, who hadn't been seen on mainstream wrestling for 5 years, really, full time. And I was thinking at the time, boy, this is just the wrong road to go down. You want to have the young up and coming. You always need legends, but that's what you got Sting there for. But to me, I was thinking, come off it. It's turning into the retirement league. And what got TNA over in the first place is where your Amazing Reds. And I mentioned Amazing Red first, because it doesn't get mentioned enough. Your Chris Daniels, your AJ Styles, your Samoa Joes, your Eric Youngs, just loads of Motor City Machine Guns. I can name a million of them. They were the guys who were making TNA. Gail Kim and Awesome Kong, for crimini's sake. They were the people who were getting TNA on the map. And then at some point, it starts to become the retirement league. And even guys like you you were near 40, you didn't look any of all the EV2 guys, you were the only one who was in shape. And, you looked younger than your years. But it just everyone else is getting pushed out for this. And as a fan, I saw this clear as day. How did you see that within the company?
Well, that was my main, outside of reinventing myself, I guess 1A is that. 1B would be that if the WWE guys continued to come in, that I would have erased all the stink from my WWE character, and I was basically a homegrown, homemade character, Dr. Stevie, which I was. I was a TNA guy. I was a TNA character. I was a TNA on-camera personality, TNA manager, wrestler, whatever. The whole character was created within TNA's universe. So in a subconscious way, not at the time, but now looking back on it, I was like, I thought I would be protected because if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to wrestle Rob Van Dam and Jeff Hardy. And then when the ECW guys come in, we have something set up to where I don't remember any of my past. I'm Dr. Stevie, and they're trying to convince me that you're Stevie Richards. And no. There's just some interesting twist to that. But when it did start to become too much like WWE light, you're never going to compete with that. Like you just said, the Machine Guns, Amazing Red, Gail Kim, Awesome Kong, the beautiful people, everybody from top to bottom, TNA created stars. They just didn't know how to create household names at the time, marketing and doing. We would do some house shows, and this was a gauge like with WWE and TNA. We go to WWE, we go to a town for a house show or whatever, even a TV, and when you go to the gym and everybody knows WWE's in town, they're going to do a house show, this and that and the other thing. Everybody knew. We went to a restaurant, went to the hotel. When we were doing house shows in TNA, I remember riding with Daniels, AJ, and I think Joe, Kazarian definitely too. We went to the gym. They're like, AJ Styles, what are you doing here? It's like, we have a show tonight. Oh, really? I didn't know anything about. They did not know how to paper the town, promote the town, get the talent on radio shows, do the most important thing that you need to do with that. And I feel like with the television, they marketed a little bit, but it was all Hogan and Hogan, not the actual people that the workhorses are going to carry the load for, 3/4 to 7/8 of the show. That was the mistake. They took away every bit of the uniqueness of the fingerprint, the DNA of TNA. That could be the title of the episode. But they took every bit of what made TNA special away. So, and I really didn't, I thought Bischoff coming in, side note, would have been, Bischoff did a really great job with the cruiserweights on Nitro. I figured that Bischoff would be able to get the finger on the pulse of the audience with the X division and feature that in a different way it's never been featured. That was my hope. But I think he just might have caught lightning in the bottle in WCW. The variety show sold. People liked the different action that they didn't get in WWE. But this was years down the road where people were exposed to the junior heavyweights, cruiserweights, X division guys, and girls too. Remember that some girls could do some athletic stuff, and that was never featured. So, long story short was, in the beginning, it was a lot of hope, but then it became change for the negative and became just another WWE ripoff.
One more thing about this is in 2011, this isn't an EV2 question, but it's Hogan and Bischoff. How do you compare their run as far as being the overlords of TNA in conjunction with Dixie to when it was just Dixie and the creative team? Essentially, as far as backstage and dealing with them, how did Hogan and Bischoff differ to Dixie?
It was very weird because who do you go to? It's a lot like the problem that they didn't have in WWE because you had Vince, and that was the guy. You had all the other people around, but Vince's decision was final. Dixie's decision, just my impression, she would make a decision, but even before Hogan got in there, you had Jeff, Dutch, Vince. She was and then you got the talent that would hobnob with her at the ale house and try to pop. That's when the real politicking happened. And I didn't go there, but to get a takeout order once in a while. But you could see people surrounding her, trying to get their stuff. That's the way it is in every wrestling promotion. The after party is where you're politicking. The best politicking time of the entire year in WWE is the WrestleMania after party, because you are networking with everybody creatively, the management. Vince is not shielded as much. You can try to get a year's worth of business for yourself done. The ale house or the DoubleTree bar were those places where Dixie could be swayed. And you think about it, there's all stories about Dixie. She's not a stupid lady. She's not stupid, but when it came down to wrestling, her being as naive to the politics and the workers and the carnies, and also being a huge Hulk Hogan fan. It's been documented like quite publicly, right? That when she met Hogan, she marked out and he was like, she might as well just handed the purse over to him right there. It was the beginning of the end. He smelled blood in the water and that shark was about to eat.
Yeah, she was the chum and she jumped in the shark's mouth, I think, in that respect. Just because you mentioned best politicers, who were the best politicers for Dixie? Who were always... I've heard a few names. I don't think you'd be surprising anyone, but who was always sniffing around her?
The after-show recordings.
Well, it's a metaphor. I don't think people were literally sniffing around her, but...
No, I know that.
Well, I would say, like I said, I've only caught the Ale House, and then there's a couple times in the Sky Boxes on certain pay-per-views and stuff like that, where we went to, like, Irvine, California for Bound for Glory and a couple other places. Your usual suspects, obviously Hogan and Bischoff, but they're already in a position of power. They don't have to politic to anybody. As a matter of fact, Dixie probably politicked to them to get approval. Kevin Nash is as smooth as they come as far as politicking, getting what he wants. And he's an extrovert in a lot of ways. He can talk, he's charismatic, and just you see a 7-foot guy with long hair that's 10 times better than mine, in great shape, and he's talking to you and just having a basic conversation. I think Hernandez did a great job politicking to keep his spot and be featured in that way. Raven's always been a great politicker, but I don't think there wasn't enough, how should I say, Dixie only had so much energy and attention for everybody there. So I think by the time Raven or somebody else got to her, the Hogans, the Bischoffs, the Nashes, and, you could throw Booker and other people in there. But Booker, when he was there, he would just go to work, do his thing, have fun, be boisterous, do his commentary by the monitor, which all the boys loved. But his work spoke for itself. I don't think Steiner was much of a politicker. I think that plays out pretty well there. That was still good about TNA, I would say that. Now that I think about it, maybe it was going on. And I would say maybe, just my guess, is the talent didn't necessarily politic themselves, but they had advocates like Russo, Cornette, Dutch, Jeff, even Dixie herself going to Hogan and Bischoff, I think it was kind of an advocate type of thing. And then I can't even remember if there was proper agents. I think there definitely were. Terry Taylor, DeMore, I think, was an agent at one point, at many points, actually. Those were the people I think that got their chosen talent to get pushed opportunities and maybe even good money.
Dutch always says that Dixie would come up to her just one day, and obviously someone had got to her and say, hey, how come we're not doing anything with so-and-so? And then you had to incorporate that person. So there were a lot of people, maybe at the bars, maybe just backstage, wherever, there were a lot of people apparently going up to Dixie complaining that they weren't being featured enough, and then through Dixie put pressure on Dutch or Cornette or whoever to then incorporate them more. So in that sense, it was definitely happening. Did you ever, and I know you did because I'm just setting you up for the story that I know you're about to say, Hulk Hogan, did you ever hang out or have some conversations with Hulk Hogan during his time in TNA?
I never purposely hung out with Hulk or searched him out. I said hello to him. I never hid from him. Well, I did hide from people later on in the afternoon for my afternoon outdoor Kempo X workout from P90X. I would do that. I would work out before my match because I was so like worried about the looking like that picture you showed me from the right to censor. So I stayed as lean as I could. The only time, and it's just such a weird thing, I'm sitting there, and people that don't watch wrestling, it's just kind of like, just this weird kind of thing with three guys you would never sit together at a table, but you do. Myself, Abyss, and then Hogan. So Abyss was sitting next to me on my right side. Hogan sat down across from us. There's these picnic tables in Universal Studios. Outside of the studio, it's like a big breezeway where you could literally drive multiple tractor trailers through it. Then off to the right, you had offices. To the left, you had like bleachers and stuff. And you could even go straight through that breezeway and get the back door into Disney, like Spider-Man ride and everything I would do. But catering would be full, and then the picnic tables would be like the overflow. So I grabbed some food. Abyss was sitting there. We were still kind of doing stuff together, and I was talking to him about something we were going to do that night. And then Hogan came up, and I think this was the EV2 days, so I was back on TV doing stuff, and Abyss was kind of involved with that. I think that was the day or the night we jumped them out of nowhere on TV, and they broke it up and everything. And obviously Dixie was the center of attention. And said, I invited them. And Jeff's like, what? So back to the Hogan story, you know, I'm sitting here, Abyss is next to me. You're already laughing because you know the punchline. Hogan's sitting there and we're eating. And I was just like, hey, Hulk, how are you feeling? How's your back? Because he was getting like all that laser surgery and the electrodes in the back and everything. I mean, he was really, really in rough shape, but he looked great. That's what I couldn't understand. But I'm sitting there, we're eating, had a conversation, it quiets down, and he shakes his head and he goes, brother. And I was like, are you okay? What's up? And he goes, I need at least $2 million a year to live. To which I literally, it felt like I probably had an out-of-body experience because I thought I fell to the ground. But I didn't. I just literally kind of woozed like I had vertigo or something. And I shook my head and I looked at Abyss and he was like, trying not to laugh. And I said, I'm sorry. What was that again? What did you say? He goes, because he was going through the stuff with his ex and everything. And I go, what was that again? He goes, brother, I need $2 million a year just to live. And he had these sad eyes. And I was like, dude, you give me $2 million, you'll never see me again, ever. So make sure you donate below. If you want to get rid of us. But it was just like, wow. And I go, I'm okay. This fun fact. But it was just like, and all, you know, wrestlers, here's what wrestlers do. Even my best friends with Donovan Morgan and like Danny Doring and other people. And I'm just like, I gotta make you couldn't grab the phone quick enough when you walked away, you know? I gotta tell somebody. Nobody's gonna believe this. So
this was just totally unsolicited then? You were talking about what, lunch and whatever, and then, brother?
I was asking him how he feels, and I try to talk about anything but wrestling. Obviously, Biss and I are doing something, but I ask about workouts and, hey, I really want to go to that one of the sheep herders, one of the bushwhackers had that gym at Clearwater Beach, really nice gym. Man, I'd like to go there. Maybe we can work out. My whole thing, and it's more recent too, after I got sick, Nash was nice enough to send me a message when I was just starting to recover. And my whole thing is not like, hey, I want to sit there and talk or whatever, but this is the Mark part of me because I'm a fitness fanatic. If I can work out with Hulk Hogan, to me, that's a bucket list item. If I could work out with Kevin Nash, that's super cool. Even guys just saying whatever, for whatever personal things or whatever, if I can work out with somebody like Triple H and learn some of those bodybuilding methods and other things, or just the way he does things in the gym, that stuff excites me to do that. So that's really all. I was politicking to just get a workout with him, but I got the 1099s and everything thrown on the picnic table. I got like his profit loss statement and everything.
Bless him, he wasn't in a good place at the time, so I understand. When I interviewed Eric Bischoff, actually, he was the same. He was like, dude, I'll give you the brief synopsis. He was so full of opioids and barbiturates and all these painkillers and stuff like that just to get through the day. He was in a terrible place, especially with the divorce and everything.
I hate to hear that. Someone must have gave him some sodium pentothal before that, because he was telling a bunch of truths. He was not, and with his current state and his lifestyle and where he lived and home and he had an incredible amount of overhead. So when he says that, he's probably like, it's true for what you have to do to maintain the things you own and everything. But as somebody who tries to live well beneath their means, it's a bit of a culture shock, hearing that. I'll say this on a personal level, and people could say whatever. He's a politicker. He's charming. He's got great charisma. You saw the Republican National Convention where he was featured. He's really charismatic, and he can get a crowd excited. But he's always been, when it didn't come to wrestling, Hogan was, that's why I always try to talk about working out, because that's the stuff where, with the boys at least, they're like, oh, I can kind of talk like a normal person. I don't have this big wall in front of me. I don't have to measure you up and down. We're just a couple dudes talking about working out.
Was Hogan, and this might go into, no, I don't really think it goes into EV2 stuff, but was Hogan just a big fan of Abyss? Because obviously he's figured in with, the Hall of Fame ring and stuff like that somehow gave him superpowers. But I suspect is that why Hogan came and sat down with you in the first place, just because Abyss was there and he was working with it at the time or around that time?
Oh, he sure as hell didn't sit down to talk to me. I mean, I'm aware enough to know that. Or there was no seats anywhere, and that's usually back in high school, pick last to play kickball type personality. But yeah, I would have guessed he sat down with Abyss to do that. Hogan's always, look at the WCW run, look at the WWF run. Hogan loves big monsters because there's that part of him that's looking at Abyss saying, we can draw money and you can put me over. He can slay that dragon. And Abyss is somebody, I know he's doing well now, being like one of the head agents. If not, I heard he's like the person who oversees all the producers, which is incredible. But that's a talent there that literally should have been one of the biggest programs for somebody like The Undertaker. Like, he should have been in a WrestleMania trying to break the streak and trying to become the new Undertaker. That's how big of a star Abyss should have been. And he's got a great mind for the business. If he didn't have even a decent good mind, he wouldn't be in that spot in WWE.
Okay, so as Stevie makes his way to the whiteboard, we're going to get to one of our two main events for this show. And the whiteboard segment, what went wrong / what went right this week, is The Undertaker hitting the Tombstone piledriver on Hulk Hogan Survivor Series 1991. Well, we know what went wrong, but there's a lot of story behind it as well. The Undertaker, we're going to play some audio as well to give us some of the backstory as well. But as for the move, Stevie, over to you. What went right / wrong?
Thank you, James. And definitely what has gone wrong is me doing this Hogan pose. I think that's why he had so many back surgeries, because my back is very sore from that. I should have just did this one right here, or from the steroid episode, that one. But this is the Tombstone piledriver that you were talking about. And Taker, on his podcast, has already talked about this. And I've watched this footage time and time again. I actually remember when I was a kid, I had just started wrestling, and I watched this, and I said, he completely missed the chair. Not that I wanted Hogan to get hurt or anybody to get hurt, but I was like, he didn't even touch. It wasn't even close. Now, as a worker, I appreciate Taker taking care of Hogan. I believe there was backstage talk about this as well. Am I correct on that? Like Hogan wanted, hey, brother, be careful with me out there.
So he's telling me, he goes, hey, I got this neck injury. He says, I'm really nervous about taking your finish. And I was like, Hulk, believe me. I said, I will protect you. I pride myself on not hurting people. And I promise you, I will have you so tight that there's no way possible that you're going to hurt your neck. So, with that, we went on about our business. Every point during the day, I'd pass him in the hall or whatnot, I'd get the, remember about my neck, right? So that's all I got all day. It was.
And Taker fulfilled his promise. Hogan didn't necessarily see it the same way, in a way. We're going to look at this first in real time. Boom, come right down there. And the context on this is Flair had come in. I love the fact that Flair cost Hogan the title. Now Hogan's going to go with Flair, and Taker gets the world title, and he gets to defend it. We split off and have two viable characters, two viable feuds. Taker, whoever he wrestles, but now Flair and Hogan, personal issue right there. But we're going to go back here right to the point of impact. And we're going to just point this out, which you can see on the screen already, that Hogan, I don't know what the measurement is right there, but Hogan is nowhere close. Here's the chair, which is the mat, and here is Hogan's head. And there's your spacing. If anything, Undertaker's knees right there are taking the brunt of it. Undertaker has him, and we talked about it before, Undertaker has a good grip right here. Hogan is gripping him around his waist right there. But there is so much. There's Hogan's head, like I said. There's the chair. There's tons of space right there. And as we go back and forth and look at it again frame by frame, even with the flash, you can see right there. But before that, Taker's knees, he's literally not even anywhere close. He's on his upper thighs, head in the crotch area right there. Now, my question is, if it was this camera right here for that, if they stuck with that, would Hogan be able to still claim that Taker hurt him? Because this camera angle here gives it away. But this one, don't you agree, James? This one here with Flair standing right here would make Hogan look like he's not wrong without the camera switch. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Just this hard cam right here would have been like, then Taker would have thought, I hurt Hogan. Hogan would not have been held accountable for this lie. Now, I'm not saying that like the impact and everything, you don't feel a jarring sensation, but Taker has grip. He's gripping him as tight as he can. Now, what I think Hogan made a mistake on, now that I'm looking at it again, and maybe you can see it, usually when you take the Tombstone, you're wrapping your arms around him here. Hogan's arms are up here, right? This is Hogan's arm. And then, oh no, that's Taker's arm. Hogan's arm is way up here, where usually you wrap right around the waist like this. So it's hard to see with like old technology, but basically what I'm looking at right here, if Hogan felt anything, he needed to really bear hug Taker just as much as Taker's bear hugging him. That's one of the key points of taking a Tombstone is you're literally, and you've seen people reverse the Tombstone, you have to have the same bear hug grip to go back, pick them up, and you've seen plenty of people going that, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I think the best to do it has been Shawn and Taker at WrestleMania, and we're going to talk about in a whiteboard segment, unless it's going to be this one, the people that have taken the best Tombstone pile drivers or the best Tombstone pile drivers that Taker has ever given to anybody.
Because you mentioned the arm placement there, Stevie, is there any credence to a potential neck injury claim then? So let's say you have your arms around the waist where you should have. Whereas Hogan's arms are way, way above. I mean,
Hogan's arms are almost like at his side instead of wrapping around.
Could his arm placement have jolted his neck conceivably? Are you looking at that, or do you think there's absolutely no possible credence to him injuring his neck through this? Because obviously he didn't land on his head.
The only thing I can think of, if you want to put any kind of truth into it, is that when you're looking at this, and if you're not fully braced in every way that you can, meaning bear hugging Taker the same way that Taker's bear hugging you, then this effect going down like this could kind of reverberate and send little kind of shock waves down your spine into your neck, or up into your neck, but he's upside down. He could have slipped this much. Taker can hold him, but this dude's still a legitimate 300 pounds or more. Taker's trying to hold him as tight as he can. Even here, I didn't see, and we'll go back and see. He hits. He didn't even really slide. He slid down just like an inch, but still nowhere close to the chair. And then he just placed him down. Dude, look at what Taker does. He placed him down to where he literally didn't even touch the chair. Like his back could have hit the chair and that could have jolted him. His neck grazed the chair, but nothing like really obnoxious. But I'm going to show the arms. Once again, you see his arms right here. This means that you are going to have a little bit of play or give with the arm up here. The arm needs to be wrapped around here and wrapped around here. Instead, the arms are literally, like you said, he's just kind of up like this, like kind of like arms at the side. And then right there, and you can see the arms are actually wrapped around Taker's head and neck and his traps. See his left, or Hogan's right? I got the image flipped. So see the one hand up there, but he landed him. Dude, Taker could give me this tombstone, and I've legitimately broken my neck and had fusion surgery. I could take that tombstone every single night and probably never get hurt. So essentially, and I know Taker, they look back at the footage because he felt terrible. And then when he saw this, didn't he do a quote like, I knew who I was dealing with after that point, or from that point on.
Boom. I give him the tombstone. As soon as my knees hit, I hear, oh. You got me, brother. I am much like, how I'm like, you have all these, like, I'm what, 20, I was 24, 25 years old. And, I just crushed Hulk Hogan, right? That's what's going through my head. Like, they gave me this opportunity. They gave me the chance to run with the ball, and I just hurt the golden goose. So I'm just devastated, mortified, right? I go backstage, and I was asking, where's Hulk at, right? And he's laying on Vince's office floor. So I go in there, he's laid out on the floor, he's carrying on, and like I'm going in to check on him, but then here come the paramedics and stuff. So here, me and kayfabe, right? So I go behind a wall with Shane. Me and Shane are behind the wall, and I'm having to, listen to, can you feel this? Can you do that? And then I hear somebody get my wife and kids on the phone. And you watch it back, you can tell his head never touched. I got to San Antonio, and I was like, Terry, I watched it back. Your head never hit. He's like, well, brother, what it was you had me so tight that when we came down, I had nowhere to move. And that's what jammed my neck, because I couldn't move at all.
So if I could interpret that, this is my interpretation strictly and solely. You protected me so much that you hurt me. Did I get it right?
About there, yeah.
See, this kind of, and I give Taker credit, at that point in his career, he literally just won the title. He's going to lose the title. He may have hurt the golden goose, but he went to watch the footage and didn't take Hogan's word for it. So he might have had a little bit of a reputation, or Taker just wanted to look. And for Taker to approach him at that point in Taker's career and say, dude, your head never touched. It takes an incredible amount of courage and confidence, because after that moment, Taker could have not been Undertaker and could have been jobbed out and never had a WrestleMania victory. You know what I mean? Politically, Hogan could have really destroyed his career if he wanted to. But maybe Hogan was on the way out. Otherwise, they wouldn't have put Taker over. And Vince saw money in Taker, thank God, because there's tons of money in Taker. But do you see what I mean?
What's Hogan's angle here? Because Undertaker at the end says it, let me know everything that I needed to know about who he being Hulk Hogan, was as a person.
You want my opinion on who I thought he was, or maybe still is?
Yeah.
It's the old watching. Vince is watching a talent that has a lot of promise. Vince is watching a talent that has a lot of potential and is on kind of a rise. I'm not saying with Taker, I'm saying in general. Wrestler, create a wrestler, whatever it is from Fire Pro Wrestling. Vince is watching it and he's like, wow, this is good. This guy's going to be good. I really could do some stuff with this guy. And then you got a guy like Hogan that'll say, are you sure, brother? I don't know. Or just not say yes. Not saying yes is as good as this guy does not have it. So Hogan had to do the job. And then, like I said, my speculation is I got to get the title back as soon as possible. And I got to do anything I can to make it look like Undertaker, oh, he hurts guys. I mean, I'd love to work him, but he hurts guys. I don't think he has. You really want to make him champion? I don't know. He hurt me. He hurt me. If he hurts me, what's he going to do to this guy? I've been privy to some of these conversations with other wrestlers kind of trying to create that doubt so then they can go, but you can trust me, brother. I'm the guy. Without saying it. Like, I'm happy to step in now and be champion again.
Okay, then. So this next segment, the main event of this show, episode 9 on Hulk Hogan, we are going to call The Many Lies of Hulk Hogan. And I'm sure we're not the first to do this. I know this. And yes, there were dozens I could have picked from. But here's what's going to happen. Stevie doesn't know the stories that I'm going to show him. So I'm going to, for the first time, show him a screen, a picture, with the lie, alleged lie, that Hulk Hogan has said, and the meat of the matter that I want Stevie to read out loud. And then anything else you can think of to add to it, please do. And then if you want me to add to it, I've got tons of quotes. I've got tons of facts to debunk some of the things that Hulk Hogan has said over the many, many years. Are you ready, Stevie?
I am ready. I am ready for this, and I'm ready for the text from Hogan.
Okay, then. Line number 1. Take it away.
Okay, number 1. Hulk Hogan in Metallica. Quote, I used to be a session musician before I was a wrestler. That might be a lie because he didn't say brother first or last. I know he was a musician before he was a wrestler. He was in a band. I played bass guitar. That's true too. I was big, this might be where it starts right here. I was big pals with Lars Ulrich, and he asked me if I wanted to play bass with Metallica in their early days, but it didn't work out. End of quote. So my question to you, James, why do you think, now you said this is a lie, but it started off with the truth. I used to be a session musician. That's true. Before he was a wrestler, that's true. I played bass guitar. To my knowledge, that's true. Usually around the third sentence of these paragraphs, I'm assuming it gets into the gray area of Hulk Hogan lies. But did you ever meet Lars Ulrich and Metallica? I have no doubt.
Here's a quote from Lars Ulrich. That one, when that story showed up about 2 or 3 months ago, I was scratching my head over that one. Unless he went by, I don't know Hulk Hogan, I don't know enough about him. I'm not a huge wrestling fan. Unless he went by, like, his Christian name or something, and I don't know if anybody knows what his Christian name is, Dave Smith or something. If there was a whole thing that we had with him under a different name, but I certainly have no recollection of doing anything with, quote, Hulk Hogan, end quote. That one, I was scratching my head on that one too. And here is James Hetfield. I don't know Hogan's version of history. I don't remember him. What is it? Was he he was in the band for a minute? So after being told by the interviewer at the time about Hulk Hogan's Metallica story, the amused or bemused James Hetfield responded with, huh? Definitely not. But anyway, it's a good fit, yeah? He'll make the rest of us look small.
So it didn't work out. That's my takeaway. I don't know. Here's my theory about this too, and we can put Flair into this and other people within the business. Is all press good press? Is Hulk Hogan's name just being out there and talked about, and James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich are both talking about Hulk Hogan? Is that a positive to keep him relevant? For whatever negative reason it is, it keeps Hulk Hogan relevant, I should say.
Well, they talk like the internet doesn't exist and fact-checking doesn't exist, because Hogan's story has changed over the years. So here is an example of the updated version that he started saying some years later.
Now, my understanding, not to interrupt you, I'm sorry, that there is a story going out there that James Hetfield was dying, and they had a show at Wembley Stadium, and they wheeled James Hetfield out into the front row, and Hulk Hogan wrote a song with Metallica to dedicate to James Hetfield.
Yeah, he
sounds
smelled
believable.
The stench of death on him.
He did.
And he said, "Don't worry, brother. I'll win this match for you and you'll get better."
He buried the kid when he was put. Oh my God! Smell. It's like that Sheik story I told. Crack.
You didn't tell it on this one. What was that?
I said it during the interview.
Oh God, yeah. I was miles away. I'm sorry. I'm sick. I'm sick, everybody.
So here is the version that he updated in years afterwards. I heard that Metallica needed a bass player, and brother, so you know it's him, I was writing letters, made a tape of myself playing, and I sent it to their management company. Kept making calls trying to get through. I tried for 2 weeks, and I never heard a word back from them either. I was hoping for a call from them, but never got one. All the haters were like, "You never auditioned for Metallica." Of course I didn't, but I tried. And let me follow up with this one. In the same interview with a publication called Noisy, the Rolling Stones lie. I was in the UK for some award show, and Jerry Hall, Mick Jagger's old lady, was walking out with me to present this award. I heard her talking on the phone to Mick about, "Oh, you got to find a bass player, and you've only got 2 different choices." I went, "What?" She had already told me that her kids are big fans, and so already Jerry Hall's kids are Hulkamaniacs, and she wanted merchandise. So I was like, all right, let's reel her in. I was like, "Look, I used to play bass. I know all the Rolling Stones songs. Tell Mick if you guys need a bass player for the Rolling Stones, I swear to God I could show up. I could rehearse one day and play everything they play. Please tell Mick, please tell Mick." I got home, sent her all the merchandise, and never heard a word back. So these are more plausible versions of whatever it is he's trying to get across here.
Well, the next version that I predict will happen will be that Hogan hopped in a DeLorean to travel back to 1955 to make sure his parents got together. And at the dance, at the prom, the guitarist cut his hand on a screwdriver trying to open up a trunk. And they were like, who can play guitar here? Then Hogan played Johnny B. Good, and his parents kissed on the dance floor. And before you know it, they were rich, and he got the pickup truck he wanted. Does anybody know the movie I'm talking about?
That's the one. When you said 1955, I immediately thought Hulk Hogan put his arm around a young Elvis and said, "You keep at it, Jack. You've got something. Don't let the haters get you down." And then the rest was history. We will. In fact, do I have anything else on Metallica?
So number 1 is actually 1A, 1B, 1C in the lies.
Oh,
this is the same story, lie 3 different ways, but he did put brother in, which lends me to kind of believe that's true.
Let's also keep in mind that I don't know which bassist he was trying to replace, but if it's in the early 2000s when, you know, that, I can't remember that guy's name that they replaced him with, they've still got him today. That would be the early 2000s. But if he's talking about 1986, which I've got a weird feeling that he is, when Cliff Burton died, the original Metallica bassist, Hulk Hogan was making millions of dollars a year traveling the world and on top of his game. Why would you... Metallica wasn't even that big in 86. They were still an underground band. Not underground, but you know what I mean. They weren't like the biggest band in the world.
Do you think there's also going to be a story that other wrestlers have told, and then Hogan says it's him, like Billy Jack Haynes and the boys on the tracks in Arkansas, the kids who got murdered supposedly for being kind of like witnessing the arms deal or drug deal there? Do you think Hogan's going to say, well, I was there and I tried to stop it?
Yeah, he's going to be the Forrest Gump of wrestling, I think, or just the world.
That's an excellent analogy. Very good. Back to the Future is not as good as that analogy. Number 2, Andre and WrestleMania 3. I wrestled Andre the Giant, and then a couple days later, he passed on. Wow. Claimed he broke 18 muscles in Andre's back. I picked Andre up. I tore both of my biceps and pointing, this part of my back is solid, but this part is all torn away. My theory is it's this, because it's doing it to me right now. Didn't Andre, now I'm going to say this, didn't Andre famously, if I can remember, unless it's a Mandela effect.
Lived.
Yeah, he lived. That's my conspiracy theory. He lived. But he had come out on the canes, on the little walkers on his arms with the Bushwhackers at WrestleMania 7, I think.
Yeah,
or somewhere.
4 years later.
Okay.
Which
Do
is
you
more
think he
amazing
died and
considering
he was
the fact
just
he was dead?
Do you think he died and he was just too stubborn? Andre's just that over. He's got to keep going. Like we think Sandman's been dead for 25 years, but he's just so drunk. He keeps going.
Excess energy.
Yeah.
It just flows through his body.
This was the Joe Rogan interview, wasn't it?
Now, the Andre the Giant, and then I wrestled Andre the Giant, and then a couple of days later he passed on, was actually from MTV Cribs. He just throws it out there. He picks up a pair of boots and he goes, "This is my favorite pair of boots. I wrestled Andre the Giant," and then he died almost immediately afterwards. And then sort of brushes that comment aside and then says, "But these are my favorite pair of boots," and then sort of puts them away and then does
Now,
the
did he
next
say almost immediately? So that lends a little latitude of 4 years later or more is almost immediately.
6 years.
Yeah, it was 2 years after that Bushwhacker match where he came out against, I think, Haku, and who was he teaming with? I'm not sure. But I remember Andre coming down, and man, he looked like he was in pain.
Let's get to the second bit here. Claim that you broke 18 muscles. How many muscles have you broken in your career, Stevie?
I've never broken a muscle. I've torn muscles or sprained muscles, broken bones. Not quite sure.
Okay, well, it must have been a hell of a slam. I picked up Andre. I tore both of my biceps and pointing its back. This part of my back is solid, but this part's all torn away. So one body slam, and all of a sudden he's tore both biceps, and he said, "Well, I had to keep on wrestling." And he actually didn't. He took a month off. So I can't tell if he actually did tear both of his biceps and his back and then took a month off, or he had a month off planned, or, Andre the Giant's 7'4" and 650 pounds. He gets bigger every time he tells the story. I'm surprised he's not at 5 tons at this point.
Well, I know for a fact that when someone criticizes my small biceps, I'm just going to say, you know what? That's really insensitive. I've torn both my biceps at WrestleMania 3. I hope you're happy.
That would hurt some feelings. Hogan has also gone on record as saying that he didn't know the outcome of WrestleMania 3, the main event, with Andre, even as the match was going on. So you must have heard Hogan speak about this. "Oh, I didn't know if Andre was going to put me over, brother." Can you believe that?
I can believe that Andre would be very vocal and refuse to put somebody over previous to the biggest show in wrestling history. I don't believe Andre would have went into business for himself, changed the finish, not put anybody over out of respect for Vince Jr. and Vince Sr., for that matter, who wasn't with, but that was the legacy from senior to junior. This was 90,000 people. It was the biggest show ever in wrestling history, as far as I know, even bigger than the Shea Stadium shows and all the other stuff that Andre had wrestled on. And obviously it was going to make Andre the most amount of money. Now, I think Andre hopefully went to Vince or somebody and said, how much are we getting paid for this thing? Because Hogan got paid more than everybody combined on the card, according to Jesse Ventura. I don't know if that included Andre, but Andre definitely needed to be like the same exact pay. I think both their names in the match, that match that drew, which, by the way, is not a negative 4-star match, was a 5-star match. If you want to go back to episode 8 and look at that, Andre deserved as much pay, if not more, than Hogan, because Andre was technically undefeated at this point. He was legitimately passing a torch to Hulk Hogan.
Well, you say legitimately undefeated. I mean, he was legitimately defeated many times.
But
Not in
they were playing
WWE.
15 years. No, he lost in WWE as well.
Yeah, but we're
pretty sure he
talking.
did.
Okay, let's argue this point for a second. I'm talking about. I didn't even realize that until I was well into the business wrestling. As a fan, when it was presented that Andre had never been pinned, this was the age of TV, the age of pay-per-view. Is it revisionist history if you look back before that era? Yes. But everybody who grew up on the promotion of that pay-per-view, Andre had never been defeated, and this was the first time we were witnessing it on such a grand scale.
Bret Hart confirmed during a Legends of Wrestling episode that Andre was all for putting over Hulk Hogan in their big match. So there you go. You either got to believe Bret or you got to believe Hulk in that case. So it's entirely up to you.
We're going to move on.
Well, we're not doing a segment on the lies of Bret Hart. So does that give an indication to anybody out there?
Next one. Take it away.
Oh my God. I just read the title. Elvis was a Hulkamaniac. Before joining the WWE, Hogan was a part of the professional wrestling scene in Memphis. This is true. I've seen it. He had the heart shaved out. He was Terry Boulder. He had his hair, his chest hair. At one point, he had a heart that was shaved out. Not only was he a part of it, but he was so popular, even the infamous Elvis Presley would come out to watch him wrestle. Now, I may have gotten that wrong. Thunder Lips in WrestleMania or Rocky III, did he have the shaved heart for Thunder Lips?
Oh, that's a good question. I
could have sworn he might have did it on some local shows like Memphis. This is a tough one. This is the one where Hogan, this could be true because Elvis was in, I know it's not true, but I'm saying Elvis had Graceland. He was in Memphis. I think Elvis was a wrestling fan to some extent. Jerry Lawler was over from, what did he start getting really pushed? Like 71 or 72 or something, like early to mid 70s. Elvis died in 77, I believe.
Yep.
So Hogan's right. But the thing with Hogan is, here we go. These are the three lies so far. The dead kid at Wembley. Andre's no longer with us. Elvis has, if you're not into the theory, Elvis is long gone and passed away. Nobody except for Metallica, that's the brave lie. Nobody has any ability to counter his lie.
Well, Hulk Hogan didn't get to Memphis until 1979. Elvis Presley died on the toilet in 1977. Stevie,
watching a Hulk Hogan match.
Yes, he was watching Hiro Matsuda break his leg.
Training in Florida when he died. When you imagine, and I've come up with this theory before, Elvis Presley, everyone has thought about it, come up with an image in the head. Everyone's heard that Elvis Presley died on the toilet, pills all over the floor. When you imagine that scene, is he wearing his Elvis white jumpsuit?
See, this is where you make a joke out of everything. And I got to say, you would have made a great professional wrestler, turning everything into comedy. I appreciate that. We have to have somewhat of a sixth sense of humor. Now, I heard a different rumor that, yes, he wasn't wearing his white jumpsuit, but there were episodes or issues of Pro Wrestling Illustrated all over the bathroom floor that had Hulk Hogan on the cover. That's going to be the next version.
Yeah, good reading. Good reading material as well. Next one. Oh, is there anything else I need to add to? Oh, this is another thing. This is another celebrity hanging out with. I'm sort of doubling down on some of the ridiculous things he said. That he also said that he partied with John Belushi after WrestleMania 2. WrestleMania 2 happened in 1986. When did John Belushi die?
I do not know. You can go ahead. I will do the work and look for it right now and see.
Well, I'm going to suspect,
because I actually didn't write this. I think it was 84. No, 82. So Hulk Hogan really has a thing for claiming that dead celebrities are Hulkamaniacs. When one, they can't prove otherwise, and two, they were dead long before Hulk Hogan would have possibly had any contact with them.
Well, I have some theories on this. Number one, is Hulk Hogan a medium? Does he speak to the dead?
Does he drink with them?
Does he drink with them? Does he play bass for them? Does he do all these things? Does Does he write songs about them after they're gone and check to see if they like it? Or is he digging up graves? Is Hulk Hogan a psychopath? Is he committing crimes against humanity?
Well, he does have the
These are
atomic
just
leg
as
drop- leg drop.
ridiculous as the stories.
You know, he's got the atomic leg drop. I mean, that should be outlawed by the Geneva Convention, that thing.
Well, I heard that he was there in Hiroshima too, or Hiroshima.
Next one.
This is like the botches. This is like the botches reaction video in the beginning. It just pops up, and when I read it, I'm just like, "What?"
Yeah. So people know Stevie didn't know the ones I was picking for this either.
Number 4, time traveling Hulkster. Hogan once claimed in his biography that because he traveled back and forth to Japan so much that he would gain days, quote, gain days, and once lived 400 days instead of 365 everybody else lived that year. I'm going to have to lean towards a lie. I mean, it's a toss-up here. This was from Joe Rogan, right? This, I believe.
No, his biography.
But dude, he said it on Joe Rogan too. He's repeating these things. So how do you calculate that? Is he calculating this according to inflation, or I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to even have I can't have a clever quip on this. This is just like, wow.
Let me give you the full quote. If I say I wrestled 400 days a year, it's no exaggeration. My years were actually longer than 365 days. There were times when I'd fly back and forth to Japan twice a week just to wrestle. Now, it was nothing to wrestle in Madison Square Garden one day, then fly all the way to the Egg Dome in Tokyo the same day, because you'd gain 14 hours and then fly back to the West Coast and so on. So I would wrestle in Japan today and then fly back across the international date line and land in another town yesterday. I was constantly adding days to my years. I mean, who are you to fly in the face of that kind of logic?
I have a whiteboard segment I would like to do. Everybody please comment below. I would love to bring up Einstein's theory of relativity, if I can say it with my Philly accent. I want to bring up a visual aid of how time and space, they bend. And he may have created a wormhole in order, see, he might have access to stargates that we don't know about on this planet. So, like I said, who are we? I mean, we're going to have egg on our face when it comes out that they had one of those stargates in the Egg Dome, and they had another one at Madison Square Garden, and he can go back and forth.
In the babyface locker room.
Is he doing this is Hulk Hogan just one of the most subtle trolls in internet history? We're up to number 4. He can't really mean this. He can't. I see his logic, but I don't know how this, like, in his mind puts him over, that he lives, during this time, he has lived 35 days more than us per year.
Let's keep in mind that he's dropped the atomic leg on hundreds of years of scientific research and discovery there. So, it requires no input than just to listen. Here's the thing. Does he not think that whatever time he gains one way, even if he teleported, he would lose it on the way back? I don't understand how he can't come up with that time's only one way. So if you go, which also doesn't work, if you're flying against the Earth's rotation, which doesn't matter anyway, because I used to think that once. Like, it was always quick, and I didn't realize what jet streams were, but I was very young and stupid. But let's say it takes you 20 hours to fly one way, and then you have to come 20 hours back. I don't understand why he adds up one and then doesn't subtract the other way. He was playing too much bass in that high school.
You're really trying to figure this out. You're getting pretty flustered.
I am, yeah.
God,
let me give you this.
We're 4/10 of the way along in this clip.
It's upsetting, isn't it? I want to actually give you this because I found this interesting. Hulk Hogan would wrestle in Tokyo on June 18th, 1982 against Andre the Giant, a whole 5 years before his death at that point, in Hogan canon at least, then fly back to San Francisco to defeat Bobby Heenan and Nick Bockwinkel in a handicap match the next day. So he was going back and forth quite a lot. enough to gain 35 days, we don't. We can't be sure. With theorizing, no.
Number 5, Hulkster in The Wrestler. This is the movie with Mickey Rourke, Randy the Ram. Quote, when the script for The Wrestler kept coming to me, I said, another quote, this movie is so good if you put me in the film as a wrestler, people are going to say, another quote, no credibility. Hulk Hogan isn't a good actor. End of quote. Whatever Hollywood thinks of me, as soon as they put Mickey Rourke in there, I knew it had a chance. And he did such a great job. It relit his career. I'm not quite sure what he's trying to say here.
He was the original muse for The Wrestler. They wanted him in it.
So they wanted Hulk Hogan to be kind of a washed up wrestler on the indies and the end of his career, can't make a real job work, can't make a relationship with his kids work or his kid. And they basically said he has no credibility and he's not a good actor. So Hollywood turned him down in the end, or I don't understand this.
I think maybe it seems like Hulk Hogan was turning down this role, and it's not the only role he's turned down. We'll get back to The Wrestler in a minute. He was getting all these movie scripts because he was doing films in the 80s and 90s, and he also said, right before Pamela Anderson met Tommy Lee, I got this crazy script to do this incredible movie with her where I play this cop with a young partner like Brad Pitt, who's in love with Pamela Anderson, and he gets killed in the line of duty, and she falls in love with me, and it gets really crazy. I turned that down. Then there's a couple more famous ones. Hogan also revealed, I don't know what he's revealing, he's saying that he had a chance to star in Highlander, and also to appear as Little John in the Mel Brooks movie Robin Hood, Men in Tights. 2 great films for 2 completely different reasons.
All right. And this is kind of one of those things about trying to one up Andre, because Andre was in The Princess Bride. It's still one of the most revered films out there, and Andre was also Bigfoot in The $6 Million Man. Andre had quite a resume on acting and TV and films. So you think Hogan had a little bit of jealousy for Andre's exposure to that type of stuff, because he turned down a role with Brad Pitt and Pamela Anderson. He didn't want to be in The Wrestler, but he wanted to be in Suburban Commando and The Nanny. What was it called? The Nanny or something? Or
The Nanny, yeah. I watched that as a kid. I remember liking it as a kid, and I don't even think I knew who Hulk Hogan was at the time.
Which one was Taker in? Taker was in Suburban Commando.
Suburban Commando.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're men in tights, we roam around the forest looking for fights. He could have been singing that and doing the dancing number, and he didn't. Oh, that's what I was going to say. I don't think he was as jealous as Andre the Giant. He was jealous of Roddy Piper.
Oh, that was another one. One of the greatest documentaries ever. They Live. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, Roddy had quite a film career. Well, it's funny in Hollywood, too. Hogan was so over in wrestling, he kind of couldn't be anything but a version of Hulk Hogan in movies and TV. Piper and Andre could play character parts. Roddy did such a great job acting in that movie. That was incredible. When I met him at WrestleMania one year, I told him about that. I was like, I go, as a wrestler, as a heel, this and that. I go, but I've watched They Live probably 20 times at that point. I was like, that was one of the best performances I've ever seen. And that the uncomfortably long fight where he was trying to put the glasses on the dude that was like the dark. I'm guaranteed, this is my theory. The Dark Knight Rises where Bane fights Batman on that bridge, and then the thing that was below where all the armory stuff was. That was taking a beat from They Live. No music, no nothing, just very uncomfortable fighting sounds where it went on way too long. That was such a good movie.
That fight also gave us Cripple Fight in South Park as well, which was actually taken frame for frame off that film as well. Darren Aronofsky,
who was the director.
Actually, I'll give you a Family Guy reference too, that when Peter fights the chicken for an uncomfortably long time. That was probably from They Live too.
So I think Roddy actually choreographed that, because I don't think that was meant to be anywhere near as long. And then Piper's like, no, we do it this way. And anyway, they worked it out with, what's the actor's name? Keith something.
He's still acting today.
Yeah. Do you know what? He's in Requiem for a Dream right at the end. What's he called? Keith something, the actor.
His name's Keith. I don't know. You might have to research that real quick, but he's a great actor.
I'll research that very quickly while I read out Darren Aronofsky's quote. For the record, I think he tweeted this, for the record, the role of the wrestler was always Mickey Rourke. It was never Hulk Hogan, as he claimed on Howard Stern.
I'm genuinely asking a question out of curiosity. Like you said, the internet's around, but there's also radio shows and other things back when the internet wasn't as prevalent where Howard Stern or anybody else can be like, they just need content, right? This is just another question, much like our show here. It's a question to ask Hulk Hogan to get a soundbite, to get a clip out of it that can live in perpetuity. He doesn't think that anybody's ever going to call him out on it. Here's a question too. Has anyone ever challenged Hulk Hogan face to face on camera with these specific lies?
No, I don't think so. It's why if I ever interviewed him, I would be the first. I promise you I'd be the first. It's like, all this bullshit that you've been making up for absolute decades. Can I just challenge you on 300 or 400 points?
I don't think, yeah.
He might give your wife $1,000 to slap you or kick your ass, remember? He might take a page out of Flair at the pizza place.
Oh, God, yeah, I was wondering where you were getting at with that. I thought you just knew my dark secret that I was into that.
We will. Oh, but Keith David, by the way, it was
do my head in trying to figure that guy's name. Keith David it was. Right, next one, Stevie.
Number 6, WrestleMania 30 surprise. Hulk Hogan claimed that aside from mixing up the Superdome and the Silver Dome, he also claimed he had no idea. Oh my God. He had no idea that Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock were coming out to interrupt him. Now, I kind of like shook my head for half a second, but it is within the WWE way of doing things to get a natural reaction. But I don't think Austin and Rock, they have actually, I'm flipping back and forth because I'm trying to think. Wasn't there a WWE 24 documentary where they were all backstage talking before okay, now that I recall it.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I actually had a screen grab of those three talking beforehand as well. But yes, so obviously it was all planned out. I wonder if they told The Rock and Steve Austin that they were going out as well, and then just Steve Austin oh, I'm in the middle of the ring in WrestleMania 30. They didn't tell me.
My real question is, where did they fly from, and how many days did they gain when they went to the Superdome?
I think Austin would have only gained hours.
Because he probably was flying from California.
What an amateur. What an amateur compared to Hogan.
We'll move. There's not really anything to say other than that definitely he knew. Okay, number 7.
Number 7, George Foreman Grill. And I know this one. He's told this forever. Quote, "Hey, Hulk, this is Sam Perlmutter. I got a grill and I got a blender, and I'm going to call you and George Foreman to see who wants it." Quote, "I wasn't there to answer the call, so when I called Sam back, he said George took the grill." What do you think?
Well, he would come out years later with his own version of the George Foreman grill in like the mid-2000s. And I actually remember, I don't know if someone messaged me or told me to turn the channel. It was Hulk Hogan and Jimmy Hart flogging a Hulk Hogan grill on one shopping network. I don't know what it was. There's 1,000 out there, and I'm sure there are 1,000 still. And I remember watching this and just thinking, what a JoJo performance of just trying to piggyback onto the grill thing a dozen years after it's it's a great product and everything, but a dozen years after the best grill has already come out with George Foreman.
All right, do you believe? I mean,
wait a minute. So you think
blender?
I'm going to say, so you're trying to tell me that Pasta Mania was a huge, huge failure?
That was in the Mall of America, wasn't it? I think it lasted a year. It lasted a year or less than that before it closed down. I've actually seen menus from that. Here's another thing about Pastamania. It's like, how many bodybuilders do you know out there who says, "I tell you what, just before a big match, what I like to do is clog my guts up with a giant pasta meal"?
Not too many. As a matter of fact, eating anything before a match is usually not the thing that most wrestlers want to do. So, hey, capitalizing on the Hulk Hogan name, trying to put that in there. I never understood athletes or actors, entertainers that have all this money that they could just put in certain investments and make passive income that trumps any brick and mortar business, but they all feel like they have to open up a restaurant, which is one of the hardest things to do, dealing with code, licensing, health inspectors, turnover. It's one of the, if not the hardest business to run, especially if you're on the road wrestling. Then you got people stealing money and doing all this. I don't know what the thing is of, I'm opening a steakhouse, I'm opening a restaurant, I'm opening Pasta Mania. It has never, ever worked out. And by the way, just a little fun fact, my wife and I went to an estate sale not too long ago. A person's still alive. I offered my condolences, and they're like, what are you talking about? We just put her in a home. So I got a George Foreman grill in the box, brand new, never used, for $1 American, and it still works. So there you go, Hulk Hogan. You missed out on that.
You missed out on that dollar. I'm going to give you the full quote here because it gets a bit weirder. Keep in mind that Hulk Hogan actually at one point had like a Hulkster meatball maker. And he's had a weird blender and stuff like that as well. He's been trying to chase ever since 94 when apparently the Foreman grill first came out.
I guarantee you know what he was capitalized on with the meatball maker. I want you to guess. Where did he come up with the meatball maker?
I have no idea.
He called Stallone Meatball in Rocky 3.
There you go.
Yep.
If it could have Sylvester Stallone's lopsided face somehow printed in the meatball.
Stallone's not stupid. He wants some money.
No.
He's trademarked that face, I'm sure. I'm going to give you the full quote from, this is actually from Hogan Knows Best, apparently. When asked if he passed up on the George Foreman grill, he said, "Stop, that's not true. My kids were upset because I was always picking them up late from school. So I said, I'm going to beat all these soccer moms today, and went to McDonald's, got a cooler and everything ready, and got to the school at like 2:30 p.m. instead of 3:30 p.m. And now I've finally got all the soccer moms behind me and my kids excited I got there early. Then I get home and press the old school voicemail record machine and it says, "Hey Hulk, this is Sam Perlmutter. I've got a grill for you and I've got a blender and I'm going to call you and George Foreman to see who wants it." I wasn't there to answer the call, so when I called Sam back, he said George took the grill. So basically $550 million later, George got the Lean Mean grilling machine and I got a blender that when you put AA batteries in, it would fart and then turn off.
There's no commentary, I guess.
I don't even know what to say about that. I don't even know.
No. So actually,
answer your phone, brother. Answer that phone.
It's like, damn. It's like just because George Foreman had nothing to do on an afternoon.
You know what it is too at wrestlers? Here's what I'm going to say, and this is not exclusive to Hulk Hogan. George Foreman is one of the most recognizable characters, one of the biggest redemption stories. He was one of the most hated, not only athletes, but people in the world. You know, you watch that fight with Ali where they were putting curses on him and he got sick. I mean, it was crazy. Was it Rumble in the Jungle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Zaire. Yeah.
To go from pretty much everybody wanting to kill this guy and he was just a big, mean dude, to being the most beloved athlete maybe in history. And then the George Foreman grill and just doing that. And what Foreman did, and I don't think Hogan could have did it then, and I don't think Hogan does it now, and a lot of wrestlers cannot kind of goof on themselves and kind of laugh at themselves and be. Foreman was very disarming, extra disarming, because he realized his reputation previously that he needed to go all the way into teddy bear mode, and it made him $500 million, if not more. One of the most beloved, inspirational stories post like boxing or any sport that you'll ever hope to have.
You know what George Foreman named his kids, do you?
George.
His daughters are Natalie Foreman, Leola Foreman, Georgetta Foreman, Frida George Foreman, and Meecha Foreman. They're the daughters, so 2 Georges there. But the sons are George Jr., George III, George IV, George V, and George VI. It's like a royal dynasty, all within one generation somehow. They've managed to get there. I thought I'd just mention that, just in case you thought that wrestlers had an ego problem.
Number 8, UFC 1. Yes, you've heard that correctly, ladies and gentlemen. Please put your own, predict the ending of this. Hulk Hogan claimed to Melbourne's Herald Sun that he was invited to...
Oh, yeah?
My brain
So
will not allow me to
you've
read
never heard
that.
this one before, then?
Never heard this one.
Okay.
Hulk Hogan claimed to Melbourne's Herald Sun that he was invited to fight at UFC 1, and I watched UFC 1. You couldn't pay me enough. I don't care, invitation or not. He also claimed that he used to fight Pride fighters, oh my God, back in the 1970s when he first started going over to Japan. Pride was formed in 1997.
Now, I don't know if he was just using Pride fighters as a catch-all term for shooters, which he may well have been doing. I'm actually going to give Hogan the benefit of the doubt. So he was talking about when he used to first go over to Japan, you didn't know who you'd be staring at the other side of the ring, which, and I'm going to be very kind here, is fairly true. You don't know who's going to try and take liberties with you from all the stories I've heard from everyone who went to Japan, all that kind of thing. But I tacked that one onto the UFC claim, where he actually did claim that he was invited to fight at UFC 1. How do you think Hulk Hogan... I mean, maybe if he was paired against Richard Belzer, he might have had a chance.
Oh, yeah, there's all that there. Hey, I was going to say this. If you think there's shoot fighters over in Japan, UFC 1, that was no rules. No rules. Was there even rounds? In my estimation, I don't even think, like, it was done in a tournament style, right? I mean, the guys were fighting multiple times. In Japan, I will give that to him, too. You're a gaijin, you're an American wrestler, you're going over there, they're going to test you. Matsuda did break his leg in wrestling school. That was not a story. Other people have verified that. And Japan's pretty rough. You're talking about in the 70s, Antonio Inoki. I can't pronounce Rikazan. There's very famous...
Ricky Dozan.
Ricky Dozan.
I mean, obviously, Hulk Hogan probably wrestled Ricky Dozan as well, even though he died in the 60s.
Yeah, we'll see where that is on number 9 and number 10. But nonetheless, the way the legacy of the way that guy trained young boys, and then Inoki and everybody, you are in the ring with people that are potentially shooters. So you don't know what's going to happen. And I will give Hogan credit, man. If you think Hogan could not wrestle and he was just 5 moves of doom or whatever got him over in American wrestling, watch his Japanese stuff. Hogan could go. He could go. Inzaguri's. He did the Tiger Mask International thing with the drop toe hold. He could wrestle. He wrestled Hansen, Inoki. I'm trying to think of different people throughout those generations during his time in Japan. Brody.
Who was who did he wrestle on that 1991 tour? You know, when the WWF were working with the new
Muda? It was Muda, I think. Great match. If that's the one I'm thinking about.
Not the one I'm thinking about, but I'm going to try and find it. But yeah, there's like even into the 90s when he's fully into the WWF 5 Moves of Doom thing, and then he goes over to Japan. And boy, does he just turn it on! He's doing moves that you'd never see anywhere else.
I do have to stand ground that I think that was Muda that he wrestled as KJ Muto, not Muda with. I don't know. Did he blow the? They had a great match. Whenever it was, it's up on YouTube. I've watched it. He can go. He could go back then. So maybe that was contributing to his back issues because those
Tenru.
Oh, that's another one. Yeah.
That's the one I was thinking of. Apologies for breaking into that. It was upsetting.
Once again, Tenru for his size could move too. They had a great match.
The UFC 1. Keep in mind that was in 1993. Also keep in mind that Hulk Hogan had really leaned out by this point, so maybe he wasn't training for a UFC debut, who could say. But a tweet by Bloody Elbow revealed that Hogan's bluff was exposed by Campbell McLaren, the one of the UFC founders, because of a very simple factual error. He's talking about Pride in the 1970s. But he also says that, I'm trying to get the quote here, but he denied directly sending an offer to the Hulkster for UFC 1. So that's one of the founders of UFC saying absolutely not. I don't know. Well, there you go. We need to get the other one, and I can't remember the other guy's name. Next one, number 9.
Yeah, you alluded to this earlier. So
yeah, I heard this recently. Number 9, Kevin Owens discovery. I love that first line. Quote, I hate to brag about it, but I hate to brag about it, but I'm the first one to point out, I hate to brag about it, but I'm the first one to point the finger at Kevin Owens. I saw him on NXT like his second match and saw him just chop, beat, grind, and beating his guy down. Doing it in the old school way and really understanding how to get heat. Doing it in the old school way, and I said, quote, that's the guy. I said, quote, that's the guy. I don't care if he looks like a wrestler or looks like an ice cream salesman. He just buries him. I don't care. That's the guy. Well, Kevin Owens,
pretty good line.
I think you need to reach out to Hulk Hogan. Sorry.
Yeah, Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen has never said that Hulk Hogan went to bat for him once. But I like that Hulk Hogan was... how many times have you ever heard the line, I hate to brag, but...
Here it comes. That's just a wrestling thing. Wrestling thing is you got to get your stuff in. You always have to be right about everything. You always have to be the best at everything. We kind of go the opposite way. You have to stop me from the other way of talking about myself. But these examples right here are the reason why I am the way I am. You got to keep yourself in check. You got to keep it real. I get things wrong, but man, I mean, this kind of stuff, I don't know what this even does. Because all you have to do is ask Kevin Owens, and he'll be like, I don't know. If anything, Triple H discovered Kevin Owens from the Indies and Ring of Honor and other places. I'm sure he was on the radar of somebody in NXT in the Performance Center. And didn't Kevin Owens, I mean, they put it up on YouTube, the first promo he did at the Performance Center, that's what impressed everybody and got him his job and got him kind of on that road.
Keep in mind that Hulk Hogan once, a lot more recently, said about AEW wrestlers that half of them look like they should be bagging his groceries.
So he's quite hung up on looks as old Hogan. So I don't.
So they're all the guy. So they're all the guy then, right?
Which I love
that line. It's like they should be. He's not wrong, Hogan, that they should be bagging my groceries, but then he says that Kevin Owens looks like an ice cream salesman, but he's great.
It's just a classic backhanded compliment from a pro wrestler. Like, you look like crap, but man, you're the guy. Hey, you're not as good as me, but you're the guy. That's kind of the subconscious kind of, reference to that.
Yeah, just don't tombstone him, or else you'll find yourself not being the guy soon.
Well, you hit him with the stunner. He's going to call for his family to come to the ring. Oh, here we go.
Next one. The very last one, number 10.
This is not something I heard before. Are you kidding me? Number 10, The Undertaker discovery. The Undertaker, Mark Calloway, was one of the bounty hunters in the movie Suburban Commando. That's true. We became really good friends. And once we were done, I said, man, you should come to New York. But little did we know at the time that Undertaker would paralyze Hulk Hogan at Survivors. So Hulk Hogan regrets the fact that he discovered the Undertaker. Can two things be true at once?
Well, he never wrestled again. He died a couple of days later.
Well, he was dead to begin with, the Undertaker.
I guess so. So I've given you the quote there.
Where did we end up? You should come to New York. I'm going to give you the full quote here. It's kind of funny how The Undertaker came about. You can sense the humble brag about to happen when he sets up that sentence. I was doing a movie called Suburban Commando, and we needed a couple of really big aliens. We had one actor, and we couldn't find another guy big enough. So I remembered Hulk Hogan, remembered Mean Mark Calloway from the NWA, which wasn't the NWA, it was WCW at the time. He was working in Atlanta, Georgia for Jim Barnett at the time. Was Jim Barnett there in 90?
Maybe. I think he was
Jim Barnett was a booker in WCW for, I don't know when he was in WWE, but Jim Barnett was one of the names that creatively did a lot. He's the one that actually got Ultimate Warrior kind of the opportunity to go to WWF at the time.
Did he really?
Yeah. During the Ultimate Warrior has a shoot interview with, I think, Mike Johnson from a long time ago, and he told the story about that with Barnett.
Well, there you go. I learned something. I know Jim Barnett was hanging around at the time. I didn't know if he was in a position of power. I certainly don't think he was booking. In 89, I think it was George Scott.
Well,
Maybe
he had a position of influence within the whole industry.
Yeah, we can agree on that one, most certainly. So I had somebody to hunt him down, and we brought him to Hollywood. And the Undertaker, Mark Calloway, was one of the bounty hunters in the movie Suburban Commando. We became really good friends, and once we were done, until he paralyzed him, Dunn and I said, man, you should come to New York. So I brought Mark Calloway in to meet Vince McMahon, and Vince took a long look at him. He was a monster at 6'10" and in really good shape. And Vince goes, I'm going to call you The Undertaker. There you go. Just that quickly. I said, oh my God, this will never work with the body bags and dead people, but I was wrong on that one, so The Undertaker was born. So he's humble bragged himself into thinking that the gimmick wasn't that good.
Okay.
Now,
so,
the version that I heard was that Vince took one look at him because he's so tall. He wanted to call him the Overtaker because he'd always go over in his matches and be undefeated. And Hogan goes, brother, what about Undertaker? Vince was like, everybody,
Have you ever heard one of these, like from the old days, and it's like with Elvis or whoever, and it's like, and that's when I told him, Elvis, that'll be your first number one. Or the Beatles or something like that. And everyone seems to have some sort of anecdote in the music business where,
I was the first one to tell him that that's going to be the first number one.
It's the old I was there. It was the I was there humble brag.
Yeah.
With that being said, Suburban Commando was filmed between September 24th, 1990 and January the 18th, 1991. Now, The Undertaker was already in contact with WWF at the time, by the time that Suburban Commando started shooting. The Undertaker's recollections here. So I just copied this from a website. With The Undertaker finally taking interviews to promote the Last Ride docu-series on the WWE Network, Calloway recently discovered how he got the part on ESPN's Cheap Heat podcast, having left on WCW where he wrestled as Mark Callis in the middle of 1990. So he already left by mid-1990. Calloway met WWF leaders Vince McMahon, Pat Patterson, Bruce Pritchard, and J.J. Dillon about joining the WWF. But they didn't have anything for him at that moment. But while waiting in limbo, with his WWF future uncertain, Calloway got a call from the company requesting he audition for the role in the Hulk Hogan movie. So it turns out it wasn't a combination of Hulk Hogan and Jim Barnett. Quote, Undertaker says, worst movie ever. It was awful. Truly, truly awful. Thankfully, not long after filming the movie, Calloway got a call from Vince McMahon who asked him, is this The Undertaker? And hang on, this says not long after the filming the movie. We've just established it stopped filming in 91. Anyway, Vince McMahon asked him, is this The Undertaker? And the rest is wrestling history.
Well, not quite until Hogan's next interview where he basically, when does he discover Vince McMahon Jr.? He's on commentary and he said, brother, you could be a great promoter, just like your father.
We all know it was in the Battle of Gettysburg and he's staring across. And it's like, there he is, brother. That's the guy who's going to lead professional wrestling into the next millennium.
Now, we can joke like this, but I will give a real take on this, that if you're paired up with Hogan and you're working Hogan in the program, especially during the heyday of the original Hulkamania run, you're making money. Honky Tonk Man's talked about this. Other people, Kamala got shorted a little bit on his pay. He's talked about that in shoot interviews. But anybody who's attached to Hogan within that program for a pay-per-view or a run on house shows, you're going to make probably the best money you ever made in your career. And that is because of Hulk Hogan. The business is what it is today because of two people, Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon Jr. We cannot lose sight of that. I hate this kind of stuff, and this is a serious part of us kind of having fun with it. But to see people like Hogan and Flair and people that become this when their legacy gets heard, and when a young person looks at them in a different light other than man, I want to be a star like that when I'm older, or when I'm in the wrestling business. I want to be able to be a main eventer, be WWE champion, all that stuff. And to see that they're the two main examples. And Hogan obviously has a lot of projects with the Real American Beer, and he's always trying to at least, I guess, market his brand. But sometimes that can create more problems the longer and the more frequently you're in front of a microphone, you're in front of a camera. And I feel like Hogan, and Flair doesn't do it as much, but Hogan especially, I feel like when he does his interviews, he feels like he needs more exciting stories. I can't just tell the same 5 things. I need to update it. I need to bring it up to current 2024. I still need to be cool. Do you sense this kind of thing where he feels like he's forced to say these outlandish things in his own mind?
Flair isn't above just making complete crap up as well. I mean, he once on an RF video shoots famously claimed he was in the locker room when Bruiser Brody got stabbed.
Flair said that?
Oh, God, yeah. I can find it for you. I think I've got it on my computer somewhere. I actually clipped it. And yeah.
Well, Dutch would be able to fact check that in 2 seconds, but they're such good friends. I don't think
Dutch was there.
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
Dutch was absolutely there. But I'm saying I don't want to do anything to ruin their friendship. So I'm not going to try to get in the middle and stir it up.
Yeah, you're going to spot. But
I wouldn't take that Dutch. I wouldn't take that Dutch. Nope. And I can't wait for my diplomas to come out.
I don't know why people lie like they think people can't fact check this. But the thing was, when Ric Flair said this was in like the late 2000s, it's like he must know the internet exists. He must know that there are some records. And it was really easy to debunk that one. The same way as it's really easy to debunk Billy Jack Haynes witnessing the boys in, what was it, Alabama?
Boys on the tracks in Arkansas.
Boys on the track.
Yeah, and it's like, I actually looked this up. I found out he had a match in California that same day. And it's like, man, unless he was using Hulk Hogan's locker room wormhole.
He gained time. You know, you make a joke about this, but I researched these things and CERN and all that stuff. It could be possible. Hulk Hogan could be he could have been before drones, before holograms, before Hogan could have access to alien technology.
Why did he never fight an
To use his voice when I saying, "I'll show you, brother. I'll show you."
Do it. Bust me throat.
With that being said, you know, we've mocked Hogan's obvious lies for so long. I want to say one thing. I mean, you can say a lot of things about Hulk Hogan, like he's a habitual liar, obviously. But one thing that I always take away from him is every single story you hear about him that doesn't revolve around secret recordings or that kind of nature is that he's never turned a fan down for an autograph. Now, I don't know if this is just really good PR on his part or if he's just genuinely... and so many people have spoke up to him. You know, he's done so many Make-A-Wishes, and even before, I guess, Make-A-Wish was a thing, visiting sick kids, signing autographs, and always stops in the street if somebody stops him to talk to him. And that is at least one mark, I think, of someone who, whether he thinks it's great PR or not, really cares and actually has a heart and has never forgotten that the fans have got him to where he is. And I think people don't... Obviously, you know, the headlines and the negativity get everything. You know, more press, of course, but I don't think he gets enough praise for being really fan-friendly and actually a good dude in that respect.
Yeah, when it counts, Hogan is the Hulk Hogan, the real American, all that stuff when it comes to children. I've seen clips of his beach shop in Clearwater Beach, fans coming in and him being there and pictures and the little boy doing the Hogan thing and him backing up. He's very fan-friendly. I said it, I'll say it again. There wouldn't be a wrestling business today, what it is, with the amount of money. We would not be talking like this if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan. And we got to throw the unpopular name in there, but it's a reality and it's true. Vince McMahon Jr. Those two guys created a nationwide and a worldwide brand out of WWF at the time. They had Harley Race wanting to shoot them when they came to Kansas City, but then he ended up getting a job at the end of the day. They had promoters in the territories like with basic hits out on both of them. And Hogan was basically on the front line. He had to work the shows. He had to drive. He had to fly. He had to be at the airport, the hotel, the gym. Vince could have peeled back and not been there. Hogan was right there on the front line of stuff that could have got real ugly real quick. So for everything we just kind of joke, hopefully harmlessly, about these 10 lies, I want to thank Hulk Hogan for making the business what it became. Without you, you gave your body up. You're still feeling pain today, and you're still, for positive or negative sometimes, I think mostly very positive, you are that fan-friendly, kid-friendly Hulk Hogan in public that still the people believe in. So that's good.
On that basis, we're going to shut down this show for this week. We didn't do the plugs at the beginning because we just got straight into the meat of it, but I'll be very quick. I've got 2 books, one on Owen Hart and one on The Rock, and it's staying at 2 books, Stevie. Please buy them. Do you know what? I spent a lot of time on them damn books, and they're excellent, for God's sake, and they've got some great reviews on Amazon, so links are in the description. And also, Storytime with Dutch Mantel. Stop flashing the 3 at me. You're not in the triple threat, brother.
I'm a big Shane Douglas fan.
Hogan.
It's not about the 3rd book. I'm a big Shane Douglas fan. And then there's Bubba and Devon.
With that being said, also, Storytime with Dutch Mantel also out every single Friday. It wasn't last week. It will be again this week, but it'll all be out by the time this has come out. Anyway, forget it. Storytime with Dutch Mantel. Everyone knows about it. And Stevie, of course, fitness stuff, cameos, YouTube, everything else. Take it away.
Yeah, cameo.com/Stevie Richards. Thank you to everybody out there who I've been communicating with through that. Also, Stevie Richards Fitness is my other YouTube channel where I talk about fitness products and stuff like that, review things, give information. Also, a smaller behind-the-scenes channel where I kind of talk about the workflow for this as well as the fitness channel. And I will be putting up my link tree very soon. We'll have all the links in one place. You can choose to do that. I've recommended brands with the fitness product, and hopefully soon we will have recommended brands and things that we can plug here on the Stevie Richards Show.
Absolutely. Okay, then with that being said, we're out on all podcast platforms every single Friday. I know this is more of a visual show, but just in case you're driving, you can't watch it, it's there for you as well. And having said that, we'll see you again next week, next Friday. See you then.
Brother!